At a prestigious music academy in Georgia, the room was filled with polished shoes, expensive watches, and egos sharp enough to cut glass. But no one expected what would happen when a quiet 12-year-old blind girl stepped onto the stage. Just moments earlier, a renowned pianist, celebrated across the South, had made a cold remark about her, loud enough for the front row to hear. The judges laughed politely. The audience smiled awkwardly. But what they didn't know was that this girl was about to deliver something unforgettable. Her name was Lily. She didn't come for pity. She came for something else. And by the time her fingers touched the keys, the entire room would forget how to breathe. What happened next? You're not ready for it. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. Lily grew up in a quiet corner of Macon, Georgia, where mornings smelled of magnolia and old pinewood floors creaked with every memory. Blind since birth, she moved through her small world with a grace that made even silence seem musical. Her mother, a former choir singer, had taught her to feel melodies instead of reading notes. Every afternoon, as sunlight painted the curtains gold, Lily would sit at the old upright piano near the window, her fingers tracing each key like a familiar friend. She didn't dream of applause, she dreamed of sound. Music was her language, her refuge. But lately, she had started to hear whispers, strangers doubting her place in the upcoming regional showcase. She's sweet, they said. But this isn't a charity recital. Those words never reached her ears, but something in the air was shifting. Quietly. Unkindly. 2 weeks before the showcase, something shifted. The head organizer, a well-known pianist named Charles Whitmore, made a surprise visit to the rehearsal hall. He wasn't known for dropping by student practices, especially not for someone like Lily. He stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, silent as stone, watching her play with an unreadable expression. When she finished, there was no applause. Just the soft scrape of his shoes approaching. Interesting, he said, then turned and walked out without another word. Later that day, her name mysteriously disappeared from the printed program list, only to be added back in, handwritten, at the very bottom. Whispers started. Teachers avoided eye contact. Lily felt it, not with her eyes, but in the air. Like a storm that hadn't arrived yet, but was already darkening the sky. And deep down, she knew, this performance wouldn't be just music. It would be a test. And someone wanted her to fail. In the final days before the showcase, things only grew stranger. Lily noticed her practice times being suddenly rescheduled, always moved to the worst slots, when the hall was cold and empty. The piano she used, once regularly tuned, now had sticky keys and uneven tones. Her mother asked questions, but the faculty smiled and shrugged, offering no answers. Even more unsettling, she could sense when people entered the room, but now, she often felt watched when no one was there. One evening, after a long rehearsal, she reached for her water bottle, only to find it missing. In its place was a folded note, left on the bench, "They'll laugh before you even start." Her fingers trembled as she crumpled it. She said nothing. But the weight of something unspoken pressed heavier on her chest. The music she once played for joy now felt like a shield. And the silence around her was starting to feel hostile. The day before the performance, Lily arrived early, too early for anyone to expect her. She moved quietly through the side entrance, guided by memory and touch, her cane barely tapping. She didn't go to the practice room. Instead, she followed a corridor where whispers often vanished as she approached. Behind a slightly open door, she heard voices, sharp, impatient. "She's a distraction," said one. "Let Whitmore handle it. He'll embarrass her just enough to keep things smooth." Another voice scoffed, "People love a little tragedy. Let her play, then bury her under real talent." Lily froze. Her hands clenched. It was never about her music, it was a decision made before she ever touched a key. That night, for the first time, she didn't cry. She sat at her old piano at home, in silence, until her fingers found a new strength. Something had shifted. Not in them. In her. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid to be heard. That night, Lily's mother found an old email, one she hadn't noticed before. It was a forwarded message from a former student, warning about the Academy's long-standing pattern of quietly sidelining disabled performers to maintain a flawless image for donors and press. Lily sat silently as her mother read it aloud, her hands folded tightly in her lap. This wasn't just about her. It had happened before. Carefully orchestrated exclusions, subtle humiliation, reputations crushed behind velvet curtains and polite applause. It was never spoken aloud, never proven, but it was real. And now, she was next in line. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from fury. For the first time, music wasn't just her refuge. It was her resistance. She realized, tomorrow wouldn't be a performance. It would be a confrontation. And if she failed, they'd bury her like the others, with a smile. The morning of the showcase arrived under gray skies and heavy air. Backstage buzzed with nervous chatter, but when Lily entered, the room fell silent, as if her presence disrupted something unspoken. Charles Whitmore stood near the curtain, flipping through the program. When he saw her, he smirked slightly, leaned down, and whispered, "Remember, child, silence is kinder than shame." Then he walked away, leaving only the echo of his words behind. Her name had been moved again, now placed right after the Academy's star pupil, a boy with years of private training and industry connections. It was a cruel setup. The worst possible contrast. Her mother offered to pull her out, to leave with dignity. But Lily shook her head. Her hands trembled, but her spine was straight. She understood the stakes now. This wasn't just about proving herself, it was about tearing down something rotten, note by note. And as the announcer called her name, the lights dimmed. The moment had come. Would the room laugh? Or would it finally listen? As Lily took her place at the grand piano, the silence was deafening. A few murmurs rippled through the audience. She could feel the doubt, the skepticism, palpable, heavy. Her fingers hovered above the keys, but for a moment, nothing came. The memory of Whitmore's words echoed like a curse. Her hands stiffened. A bead of sweat rolled down her neck. Then, someone laughed. Quiet, but sharp. It pierced her. She faltered. Her foot slipped from the pedal. A judge glanced down and made a note. And for a second, Lily believed them. Maybe they were right. Maybe this stage wasn't for her. The lights felt too hot. The silence turned hostile. Her mother sat frozen in the wings, whispering her name. And just as Lily was about to lower her hands and walk away, she felt it. The tiniest breeze. A loose program from the front row had fallen, and someone picked it up, then clapped. Once. Loud. Deliberate. Then again. 2 claps. 3. The sound spread like fire. It wasn't a mistake. It was a signal. Someone was waiting. Someone believed. And Lily stayed. The clapping grew louder. It wasn't just one person, it spread across the room. The sound filled every corner, echoed in Lily's ears. She turned her head, searching for the source, but all she saw were familiar faces, now filled with hope. Her fingers, still shaking, hovered over the piano keys again. This time, something was different. A quiet power had settled within her, like a spark that refused to go out. She didn't need to prove anything. The music wasn't for them. It was for her. She closed her eyes and let the first chord ring out, deep and strong, vibrating through her chest. It was raw. It was real. And as she played, the audience fell silent, not out of doubt, but in awe. They were hearing something pure, something they had never expected. The judges watched, unable to hide their shock. By the final note, the room was still. Then, as if on cue, the entire audience erupted into applause. Lily had won. Not just the competition, she had won the right to be seen. And she knew this was only the beginning. Months later, the echoes of that performance still rang in Lily's mind, but they no longer carried the weight of doubt. She had become something greater than a blind pianist. She was a symbol of defiance, of strength, and of the unshakable belief that no one could define her worth but herself. Her music was now sought after by those who once doubted her. The judges who had underestimated her were now praising her every note. But the world hadn't changed entirely. Behind the applause, Lily knew there were still those who couldn't see beyond their own biases. It made her wonder, how many others were out there, hidden in the shadows, waiting for their moment to shine. Could we all rise, like she did, when the world tries to push us down? What about you? What would you do if they told you that you didn't belong? Would you fight back, or would you let them win? Hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going.